So, everyone, welcome back to the AOR Talkshow, and we're here today. Unfortunately, Pepper's not here, so we've got a new recruit in, and it's Matt, as I'm sure many of you know him. Matt, go on, introduce yourself.
Hello, yeah, obviously. I've been on the podcast a couple of times before, back in the Rallycross days. But yeah, really happy to be back today. Talking about the PS4 highlights, something a bit different to what I'm used to as well. Something more on the Xbox side of things personally. But yeah, interesting obviously on F1 as well. F1 Season 14 so far has been a very quite interesting season, in the first couple of races. But yeah, hopefully it can be more interesting throughout the season. But yeah, happy to be back.
Yeah, and let's just go straight into the China review, and let's talk about qualifying. So, on pole, quite a big surprise, Ollie D in first with a 140 flat on the super soft tyres, closely followed behind B Stas, just about 2 plus tenths off, with a rest seat in third, Alonso in fourth, and me in fifth. Two Toros's doing well there. B Colt in sixth place. Uh, Jim Novotank in seventh. He's on the intermediates. We'll talk about the quality in a minute. What exactly happened? Thorn in eighth, Ali K in ninth, and Big C in tenth. And now outside the top 10, H Racing Green, David Greco, Shelley, Alex UKR, Wooly, Gamer the Best, Big Shot, Jamie, Clarkey, Synthetic. So quality was definitely interesting. At the start, it was very good. Intermediate conditions didn't seem too good for the intermediates, and as the session went on, it got drier and drier, and the rain stopped, and that was when people were able to go on the superstars. And only 6 people managed to do that and get a good time, and it was good enough for them to be in the top six. So, um, who impressed you that session, Matt?
I think Ollie, he's been quite a surprise to get up on pole. Obviously, it was one of those sessions where it was last car out on track was looking in a very, very strong position. But yeah, obviously, to be able to hook up what was a very, very decent lap there, I think Ollie, certainly for me, was very, very impressive on that lap. You've also got Jake Alonso doing very, very well in those Toro Rossos and B Colt as well to get. Obviously, on that set of Super Softs, it was quite a gamble from all of those guys. And obviously, to be able to keep it on the track with no mistakes that could potentially invalidate your lap and basically scrap any chance of a big boost up the order. But yeah, all those six really, did really, really well, to take that gamble right at the end. And obviously, it paid off for them.
And yeah, Nervo Tank as well. He was in seventh. He was the fastest intermediate runner. So you can imagine he would have been on pole if it had not dried out. Unfortunately for him. Um, but yeah, top six did very well with the supers, calling it right. Um, so going into the race, it didn't seem to change much, and Ollie came out on top again, got pole, and he's won the race. Good result for him, especially being the season three GPT champion. Aresi finished in second. He gained a position in the race result. Alonso also gained a position, finishing third. Great result for him in the Toro Rosso. Novatank in fourth. Jake in fifth. Ali with a good jump from ninth. From quali, he finishes sixth. Thorn in seventh. H Racing Green in eighth to get his first points. Synthetic in ninth, and Big C in 10th place. Just outside the top 10, Clarky, Jamie, David Greco, Alex, Shelley, Big Shot, Gamer, B Colt, and Wooly, and B Stars disconnecting mid race, so he was unable to participate for the rest of it. So, looking at the top 10, it was very mixed, especially from last week. Ollie still coming out on top with, Aresi having a poor race in Australia. He managed to bring it back and finish in second. So, who surprised you this race? And let's just talk about the conditions as well, because they were interesting.
Yeah, obviously the conditions do really, really shake it up, and it obviously allows some drivers that are more confident in the rain to obviously be able to push up and really score some good hauls of points. And I think Ollie, really, really proved that. China, a track that sometimes throws up some interesting conditions during these races. So obviously you have really got to practice for both the inter and the dry. But yeah, Ollie's wet pace, just seemed to be just that tiny bit better than the rest. Obviously, we had Nervo Tank, who was able to climb all the way through the field up to P2, but unfortunately, all those penalties that he did have unfortunately meant that he did drop back down to P4. So, It was looking tight between him and Aresi, but yeah, Aresi obviously also doing very, very well. Getting from P3 on the grid and getting into P2 in that race, for him to score some good, really good points during that race probably was a bit crucial after what seemed to be a little bit of a poor race at Australia.
Yeah, definitely. And just being on the track there in the moment, like it was to start with, it was wet, and then as the session got on, it started to get a bit drier, and the intermediates were ready to be on. It was the crossover was very interesting because the wets were so turned on that they were able to carry on going through this light rain. They were probably the better tyre. The inters were taking ages to get up to temperature, so those conditions were difficult. Thorn, who had a disappointing race last week, he managed to get up into seventh and score some points for the Mercedes team. Alex, down in his 14th, not great for him. The Mercedes team, who we expected to do well at the start of the season, haven't really shown it compared to the Ferraris and the Haas.
Yeah, the Ferrari, Haas, and Toro Rossos after the first 2 rounds are all looking very, very strong. And obviously, they've got a 16-point lead over the next team, which is Red Bull there, who, again, are 10 points ahead of Mercedes. So Mercedes, haven't come out of the blocks running like they probably would have liked. It's been a couple of rounds for those guys, only scoring 15 points between two of them. Realistically, they could both be fighting for race victories. But I'm sure, at some time or another, their pace will really start to shine. But yeah, certainly, not what they would have expected from the start of the season. It seems the Ferrari-powered cars really are, getting out well at the start of the season. Obviously, that's very, very interesting to see.
Yeah, and just some teams who have also struggled at the start. Renault and Force India, 9th and 10th in the constructors. When Jamie and Shelley, in the Renault team, it seemed like a strong grid, but they don't seem to have proved much in these first two races. Same for the Force India team. Beastas, who qualified second in this race, he plummeted down the field as the race went on. So, what did these two teams, we'll talk about McLaren, so these three teams need to do in the next two races?
I think really, they just need to try and get the laps under their belt, build up a bit more confidence with themselves and with the car, really sort of try to work as well as, a bit more of a team, obviously, as cliched as that sometimes can be. If they can, properly try and help each other out, go for a couple of interesting strategies, sometimes, you might have to sacrifice your race a bit to try and help your team out, and obviously in the long run, that can be really, really beneficial for both of the drivers. But yeah, Force India being a bit unlucky, obviously, with Bestas' unfortunate disconnect. I think that was quite early on in the race there, so he'll be a bit gutted with that. But yeah, certainly, if he can try and start his internet, I can imagine he would definitely be fighting for points in these races. But yeah, Game of the Best, struggling a little bit. This lineup, one of the strongest I think we've ever seen on PS4 overall on the whole. So, it's tight to try and score points in these races. But yeah, obviously, if they can just try and get a couple of good races under their belts, maybe a couple of lucky strategy calls, then, get themselves a few points on the board, and then hopefully, the motivation and the momentum should sort of kick through and hopefully try and elevate themselves a bit further up the order.
Yeah. So talking about the Drivers' Championship, I know it's only been 2 rounds, but it's a good indication of where people are. So Jim Nevertank currently leads with finishing first in the first race and fourth in the second race. He has 37 points. RC Alonso, it's quite a surprise to most people on the PS4 side. He's in second with 27 points. Ollie D as well, he got the win in China, so it's no surprise he's up there in third with 25 points. Ali in fourth. Greco in fifth, his first a rookie, and he's already got a podium, so great result for him. Aresi in sixth, Jake in seventh, Synthetic in eighth, Alex in ninth, and Thorn in 10th. So talking about this, the championship, who is looking good to be contenders to win in the championship? Obviously talking about Nervo as well, returning.
I think, you can't try to deny Nervotank that he's looking very, very strong. One of the drivers, both him and Alonso really seem to be, the top two out of, sort of the top 8 overall that have had 2 really, really strong races. And I think, that's what's elevated them right their way up the order. Obviously, for Nervotank, winning at Australia, probably actually one of the tightest races overall in, the course of the whole entire season. It's the first race everyone puts a lot of practice in to try and do as well as possible. And obviously for him to take that race victory, it really does consolidate him as a real championship contender once again. But RC Alonso, he's brought surprise already. Perhaps we could see a few more from him. Ali K is always really, really quick, as well as Ollie, obviously with that race victory at round 2. Perhaps, the motivation can carry through into Bahrain.
Yeah, so Nevo, Ali got him 3rd and 6th. He's a decent start. I think he'll want to do better. And obviously Ollie with the first, we can't really count him out. He's definitely showed the pace in the championship. So now let's go on to Bahrain. Bahrain, I think it's one of the more equal tracks. Most people seem to be really good at it. So we could see a really close qualifying and a very close race. So who would you predict to be on the podium step, and who do you think will be on pole as well for this race?
I am going to say Ali for pole, and I'm gonna say Aresi for the race win. I don't know why exactly, but I think Aresi, he's gonna pull something out the bag. Obviously, he had 2nd place at China, and I reckon he could do one better at Bahrain. What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Ali Pole as well. He's very good in he can hold the pressure. He's definitely delivered last season in qualifying, and yeah, I think he can definitely get pole. As for the race win, I think I'm gonna go with David Greco. I remember the evaluation race being part of it, and it was so close between Greco and Ali and Alex. So I'm going to go for him. He definitely has the pace. I think Ali will finish in 2nd, and I think we'll see another surprise 3rd. We saw a surprise 3rd in China with RC Alonso. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. And what do you think the strategy will be? It seems like it will be a one-stop. It seems like it would be a one-stop with most races. What would you do in that race situation?
Personally, I think realistically you're going to have to go with a one-stop in this race. Take the super soft tyres to around lap 12 and then try it in either, if you can get them a tiny bit further, then potentially go on to a set of the softs, or, be a little bit safer and go with a set of the mediums. But the 2-stop round here really just does not work, unfortunately. So many long straights with slipstream and DRS means that if someone is one-stopping and is just that bit slower than you, they can usually keep up with you in, for a good few laps, unless, you are right on a really, really fresh set of tyres. But yeah, I think it'll be a tight one-stop, but I think it'll have to be a one-stop.
Yeah. So who do you think will be looking to do well this race, down the field?
I think, really you've sort of got Shelley is obviously had 2 non-point score finishes, the both Force Indies. Bestas, obviously he's got a bit unlucky with that disconnect like we said, so I think he'll come out with a point to prove, and as long as he doesn't disconnect again, I think he will be fighting in the points. But yeah, I think him, Shelley, Big C potentially as well, only 1 point on the board as well. He'll want to really try and prove his point in this next race. But I think, there's so many drivers, less than 10 points overall. It's going to be very, very tight between them all, just trying to get those few points where they can, if they do get a really good result, or if they do get the strategy right, then try to, potentially get double-figure points hauls during these races. But I think, this field, as I said, is so tight between so many of the drivers. It's going to be absolutely crucial, just to try and take the opportunities when they do arrive.
Yeah, so I think, I agree with Big C. Jamie as well, he did get 9th last in Australia, but, we expect him to be up there. Shelley, Big C, and Jamie, I think they will definitely want to improve themselves in this league. So I think we're going to round it off there. Thanks, Matt, for being here. And, so what are you hoping for China before we head off?
I'm hoping, we see a good race, to be honest. I think that's sort of the best thing we can ask for. Obviously, Bahrain, a really, really good track in terms of, the layout and being able to battle, as we did see during the F1 Esports Championship as well. So hopefully, it can be a good battle at the front. There's so many guys that could easily be battling for that race victory, and, hopefully, as I said, they keep it nice and clean down at turn one, and I think really then, it's anyone's race, try and win. But yeah, just a good, clean, and good fight for the win, I think is the best thing anyone can ask for.
So we'll round it off there, and yeah, make sure you check out HRL Cavi's stream next on this Sunday, 8 o'clock, and hopefully it'll be a good race. So we'll see you next week for the Bahrain review and the Russia preview.